can't possibly know the way up here. Only Wayne understands Escher's Keep. He said so.
But he could hear the swishing of the man's clothing as he climbed the upside-down staircase. He not only knew the way, he seemed to be quickly closing in on them.
I don't think that actually matters right now. We are going to be in some serious... What are you doing, Finn?
Before him, Finn Whitman, the 14-year-old boy, transformed into a glowing version of himself with a slightly shorter haircut. He was now his DHI hologram.
Willa said she saw you do this, but I didn't believe her.
It's not very stable. I can't hold it for very long. Go. Black tiles. Never two in a row is the left staircase when you reach the other side. There's the final invisible bridge, and then the black hole. I'll meet you there. Wait for me.
Philby waved his arm through Finn just to confirm what he'd seen him do.
But if you're here as your DHI, then where's the real you? Not back asleep in bed. And why can't any of the rest of us do this when we're awake?
Philby, I don't know. Maybeck said he's had the same thing happen. Willa once to twice. We can discuss this later, okay? For some reason, I'm able to will myself to cross over. I don't try to understand it, it just happens if I let it. Wrap your mind around that. It doesn't last long, and it's exhausting. So I'll meet you in the black hole, and I'm going to need your help from there on.
And you're going to stay and what? Fight this guy?
Yeah, right. I'm gonna make him wonder what he's chasing. I'm gonna freak him out of his shorts. If I'm lucky, well, let's hope I'm lucky.
Finn's sarcasm bled through his almost electric buzzing voice. He waited only seconds before directing Philby to go. Philby took off across the checkerboard floor, making sure the toes of his shoes landed only on the black squares, and never two black squares in the same horizontal row. It required a kind of dancing across and down the floor that made him look like a kid in river dancing. Finn's ability to cross over while awake had to do with achieving a kind of meditative state. If he focused on having no fear, no worries, he temporarily crossed over. He didn't know the rules or how it worked, only that he could make it happen, though only inside the Magic Kingdom, where the hologram projectors existed throughout the park. He took a moment to test his ability, aware of its unpredictability and his lack of control over it. He grabbed for the nearby doorknob, his hand landed on it, and he was able to turn the doorknob. Then he pulled his hand away, closed his eyes briefly, and concentrated on just a single idea: light. He opened his eyes and reached for the doorknob once again. This time the doorknob passed through his hand. It sparkled and glowed as he swept his hand on through the door jamb and back out. So far he seemed to be in control of his hologram, but he knew from previous attempts that his hologram quickly deteriorated. A few minutes was all that he had, until Finn, the 14-year-old boy, came back to replace the DHI. He stepped out of the way as he heard footsteps approaching. The man arrived at the platform. Finn hid behind him. The man was big, with thick heavy legs and broad shoulders. He looked a little foolish in his red and white striped jacket and straw hat. He studied the checkerboard floor like a person trying to remember the code, bringing his thick hand to his scrabbly chin in contemplation.
White or black? Odds or evens?
You are not allowed here.
Finn stared the man down. The man spun, his face a knot of anger, his voice deep and dry. Incredibly quick for his size, he jumped toward Finn and swiped at him, his hands passing right through the DHI, at which point he stood up in astonishment, looking at his hands as if they'd betrayed him.
One wrong step, and you fall.
Finn darted past the man and on to the checkerboard floor. He concentrated on the idea of light, pure light. A DHI weighed nothing, and only weight triggered the tiles in the floor. But he knew he couldn't maintain his pure state for very long. He had to lure the man out onto the floor quickly. There wasn't much time. He decided to try another track.
I'm a cast member like you.
I don't care. You are not allowed up here.
By saying that, he confirmed he knew about the penthouse, Walt Disney's former secret apartment, the secret room Wayne had offered the DHIs as a place to hide. An overtaker, Finn wondered? The group loyal to Maleficent, dedicated to changing the balance of power in the park.
I said you're not allowed up here.
White or black?
Finn's DHI stood on one of each. The pleasant warmth of the DHI gave way to a slight chill, and Finn knew the internal light was giving way to flesh and blood. He wished he understood how to control this transformation better, but that was for another time. He took advantage of his brief weightlessness and crossed the checkerboard floor to a platform that presented another 3 ascending staircases. He had one last trick left. The man stepped out onto the checkerboard, keeping his eyes on the squares. It was a long fall below, 30 feet or more, though the floor had been painted in perspective, which made it appear more like 300, a bottomless, rocky cavern. He took that in, and then as he looked across at Finn, his face turned scarlet with anger.
You won't talk your way out of this one, son.
He stepped onto a black tile, then another. He knew the pattern, making sure he avoided any 2 black squares in the same horizontal line. He progressed cautiously but quickly across the floor. Finn felt the DHI fading. He managed to maintain it for a minute or more, but he suspected that he weighed something now. Would he trip the sensors that opened the floor, or could he make it across? His plan was to run right through the man. He believed if he concentrated, he could summon his pure DHI for the fraction of a second it would take to pass through him. In doing so, he was certain he can cause the intruder to misstep, which would send him plummeting. But Finn would have to move quickly to avoid being on the floor when it fell out and gave way. He stepped onto 2 black squares. He felt his weight on his feet. He was about to be equal parts boy and DHI. How much longer? The dapper Dan stopped halfway, his face a scowl. Then something occurred to him and he belched out a laugh.
Going to wrestle me, are ya? I'll save you the trouble.
He grinned chiviously, and his right foot reached out for a white square. Finn had not considered that the fastest way for the man to catch Finn was to make Finn fall with him. Finn ran forward on the black tiles, simultaneously letting go of all fear. He felt the warmth return like a blast from a furnace, but well before he reached the other side, in fact, before he even reached his adversary, the floor went out from under him. The man fell, letting out a short scream as he funneled into a red plastic chute. Finn was floating. The trapdoor had opened beneath him, but his DHI simply hovered. He was suspended 10 feet above the evacuation chute, with only air beneath him. He felt the chill returning. He managed 3 steps toward the edge of the open pit, and then fell. His fingers caught the lip of the hinged flooring, and his body smacked into the hanging trapdoor. Normally not good at pull-ups, he must have been partially DHI, because he managed to lift himself up, hook a leg up, and pull himself up. Seconds later, the trapdoor snapped back into position. He stayed on the black squares and recrossed. Middle staircase, red door. He remembered this section well. He heard the Dapper Dan hit the bottom, and seconds later, the sounds of him climbing stairs again, faster now, ever more determined to apprehend Finn. Finn stepped forward into total darkness, a matter of extreme trust. The first time he'd followed Wayne in here, he nearly puked from fear. The black hole. He ran smack into Philby.
There's no elevator.
What?
No elevator. It's not here.
It has to be here.
No such luck, Sherlock.
But that means...
Somebody's up there. Already in the apartment. And what do you want to bet it's not Wayne?
There's gotta be another way up. Fire stairs, something for an emergency.
In case you hadn't noticed, it's pitch black. You don't happen to have a flashlight on you, I suppose?
Turn your back to me.
Finn mustered his strength. Transforming into his DHI sapped his energy. He felt exhausted from having challenged the man just now, but knew he had to do this. He closed his eyes. He felt the warmth return. He couldn't hold it for more than a few seconds. He came out of it, his legs weak, his head swooning.
Oh man, how cool was that? Hold on to my shirt, lightning bug. I saw some stairs over there.
Finn reached out and held on, as much to keep his balance as to stay with Philby. They reached a set of metal stairs, the handrail cool to the touch.
Going up?
They started climbing the spiral stairs, higher and higher. From below them came the heavy breathing of the man pursuing them. He already caught back up. He sounded incredibly close. Maybeck proved himself the faster runner, arriving next to Amanda at nearly the same instant as Charlene and Willa, despite having come the long way around. The rain was falling in punishing waves, and thunder was cracking menacingly overhead. Amanda, soaking wet, was on her knees crying. Jez just stood there, the rain passing through her. It took Maybeck and the girls a few seconds to realize what Amanda already knew.
Oh man, how long ago did this happen?
Willa and Charlene helped Amanda to her feet. Everyone but Jez was now drenched. Charlene held her hands over her hair, as if that would do any good.
She didn't keep up. I thought she was probably fiddling with her iPod, trying to protect it from the rain. She won't stop messing with that thing. So I looked back and she was there.
Amanda pointed to the DHI double of her sister.
But how is that possible? Jez isn't a DHI.
She is now.
Maybeck contradicted, running his hand right through Jez's body and out the other side. Some kids cheered and called out from the crowded area in front of Peter Pan's flight, where they stood protected from the rain.
Somebody did this. They programmed a DHI for her. But it's not much of a program. She's just standing there.
But why?
Who? The Imagineers wouldn't do this without Wayne telling us.
We can't stay here.
We need Finn and Philby.
Hunched over and miserable in the rain, Charlene finally piped in.
Can we maybe move this meeting somewhere, I don't know, dry?
We saw you two not 5 minutes ago. If they grabbed her, then if they made a switch, it would have happened between then and now. Somewhat really close to here.
Are you saying she was kidnapped?
It was obvious she was a little concerned with her hair to have stayed with the conversation.
If humans take you, you're kidnapped. I doubt there's a name for it when there's a band of Disney villains. But yeah, she's missing.
But why? Why kidnap Jez?
The three kids stared at Amanda, waiting for an answer. She pursed her lips as if she swallowed something bitter.
If I told you, which I can't, you wouldn't believe me.
Try us.
You'd be surprised at what we can handle.
The Overtakers?
You don't know the half of it.
Please, tell us. We want to help, but we need to know what's going on, what we're involved in.
This has to do with Finn, doesn't it? When Finn got tangled up with Jez and you said some kind of spell had been removed? Maleficent's spell?
That incident had happened months ago, though the kids remembered it as if it were yesterday. Maleficent had kept Jez under her control to prevent Jez's own powers from interfering with Maleficent's plan. The DHIs had managed to trap Maleficent, and Finn had helped free Jez from the spell, though her powers had yet to be explained themselves.
We have to hurry. For one thing, those kids are blowing our cover. For another, every second counts. She can't be fair.
Since when are you a detective? You've been reading too many American Girl books.
No, she's right. Time is in our favor, but not for long. Amanda and I will reach her route, looking for her. Willa, you and Charlene will get Finn and Philby out of this castle and meet up with us.
Wait, he's in there? I nearly forgotten.
Forgotten what?
Amanda looked back and forth from the sputtering and sparkling DHI of her sister to the colorful lights illuminating the castle.
Something horrible is going to happen. Jez dreamed about it. We came here to warn all of you. He's actually in there.
She dreamed about it. Your sister can dream the future, I suppose? Is that what you're trying to tell us?
Fairlies have abilities you wouldn't even believe.
What's a fairly?
I told you that you wouldn't believe me.